The Civil War is over. Survivors head out across the frontier. A vast wilderness separates east and west. Veterans become railwaymen, cowboys, settlers. Conquering nature, they'll unite the continent. Their mission, to tame the Wild West. We are pioneers and trailblazers. We fight for freedom. We transform our dreams into the truth. Our struggles will become a nation. (1865), the Great Plains. Where 30 million buffalo roam. Vast, untouched, a wilderness dividing America. Crossing the continent takes 6 months. 20,000 die on wagon trains. By ship, it's an 18,000-mile journey around South America. To conquer the wilderness and unite East and West, President Lincoln greenlights a transcontinental railroad. 2,000 miles long. It will transform the nation, triggering a tidal wave of settlement across the Great Plains.
The railroads were vital to the expansion of America. This technology connects people in a way that never before in the history of mankind has there been that kind of connection.
America's ancient wilderness meets modern American steel and muscle. An army of hammer-wielding men, Irish immigrants, Civil War vets, railwaymen. Their mission, to tame nature itself. The biggest obstacle heading east from California, a 12,000-foot wall of granite, the Sierra Nevada. Where the Pacific and North American plates collide, billions of tons of ancient rock rise up, crumpling like tin foil. Over the last 4 million years, the Sierra Nevada mountains climb more than 2 miles high. They're still growing, 13 feet in 1,000 years. One day, they could rival the Himalayas. Only a madman would dream of running a railroad across mountains like this. They don't call him Crazy Judah for nothing. Obsessed with the railroad, he sees a way through.
Come on down, boys.
Theodore Judah makes 23 trips into the peaks.
And pig that, boys.
Plotting a path across ridges and through mountain summits. Building it will be the engineering challenge of the century.
Yeah, let's mark that.
This is the most magnificent project ever conceived. An enterprise more important to the people of the United States than any other. The railroad will be built, and I will have something to do with it.
Americans love someone who can go through seemingly difficult or impossible things and make their dreams happen.
With Judah's route approved, 2 companies begin work. The Union Pacific starts from Omaha in the east. The Central Pacific from Sacramento in the west. They'll meet in Utah. It will cost over $2 billion in modern money. But the government doesn't have enough cash. It pays the companies in federal land. They must finish in 15 years or lose everything.
We have learned in this country that you really don't get anywhere in life if you don't take some risks. I think America is by far the shining light of the world in so many ways because we are risk takers.
Paid by the mile, adding curves adds profit. Corrupt investors bilk the railroad for every cent they can. A 9-mile curve means an extra 120 acres of federal land. They'll end up owning an area the size of Texas. First, they must conquer the Donner Pass, 7,500 feet up, the highest on Judah's route. Cursed by 30 feet of snow each winter. Avalanches. Tragedy. Here, just 20 years earlier, the Donner Party became trapped in the snow and ate each other. Now, Judah's railroad cuts right through the mountain. 1,649 feet of rock must be excavated, the longest tunnel on the route. Chinese laborers dig day and night. It's easier to ship workers from China than get Americans across the continent.
The railroad magnates said, the Chinese built the Great Wall, didn't they? Let's bring the Chinese in to do this work.
Over 10,000 Chinese laborers earn less and do the deadliest jobs.
The Transcontinental Railroad was built by Chinese workers brought over specifically to work on the railroad, and they were considered somewhere in between human and animal. They were not expected to survive. They were expected to come here and work and die.
7,000 miles from home, 17-year-old Hung Lei Wo swaps a life of poverty in Canton for the back-breaking work on a railroad gang. Hung Lei Wo must cut through granite so tough, a rock the size of a big toe will support a 50-ton locomotive. Progress slows 2 inches a day. To break through, they need nitroglycerin. But transporting it is banned when 15 men are blown to pieces. In a mobile lab, Scottish chemist James Howden mixes it on the spot. Nitroglycerin is 13 times more powerful than gunpowder. So unstable, any physical shock and it will explode in his hands. Howden gets hazard pay. $4,000 a month in modern money. After 3 months in the mountains, he turns to drink, leaving the nitro to Chinese men like Hung Lei Wo. Irish crews won't touch it. Detonation creates temperatures of 9,000 degrees, as hot as the surface of the sun.
So. 이거야.
An estimated 1,500 Chinese die in explosions and rock slides. Hung Lei Wo survives. His son will be the first Chinese American to graduate in engineering from the University of California at Berkeley. Once through the mountains, track laying accelerates from 10 inches to 6 miles a day. Each spike is struck 3 times. 10 spikes to a rail. 400 rails a mile. 21 million hammer swings complete the railroad. May 10th, 1869. A one-word message arrives by telegraph. Done. A 6-month journey across the continent is cut to 6 days.
The folks who had once had to risk everything in a wagon train, that is eliminated. You now can get on the railroad and travel from Boston to Sacramento. That's a revolution.
The internet of the era, the Transcontinental Railroad changes everything it touches, triggering a mass migration to the Great Plains. The Great Plains, conquered by steel and steam. The Transcontinental Railroad threads a thin line of civilization through the wilderness. People follow. In just 1 year, 40,000 settlers moved to Nebraska, fanning out across the frontier in wagon trains.
When in the mid-19th century to the late 19th century, they went out and settled some hostile territory known to mankind in the Great Plains where I grew up. These were true pioneers.
The government accelerates the process with the greatest land giveaway in history. Anyone with a $10 filing fee can claim free land. A quarter are single women and ex-slaves.
When you see the desperate scramble in these rickety wagon trains, you realize that the promise of America was land. These are people who never in a million years would be able to own land in Europe.
Eventually, 10% of the United States will be given away under the Homestead Act.
I'm not going back to Indiana to rent until I bust entirely and have to walk back.
Uriah Oblinger, Civil War vet, claims his 160 acres in Nebraska. There's a catch. 110-degree summers spark prairie fires. Trees can't survive the drought and flames. There's so little rain, nothing grows here but grass. Without lumber to build houses, the new inhabitants live in mud huts, built of sod, cut from the plains. Uriah dismantles his wagon to make doors and windows.
They often had insects. They invited snakes. It was, well, pretty much like living in a burrow in the ground.
I think the pioneers did have it hard. They conserved, they were frugal. The one dress lasted a long, long time.
For Uriah's wife, Maddie, it's a price worth paying.
I expect you think we live miserable because we are in a sod house. But I tell you in solid earnest, I never enjoyed myself better. Every lick we strike is for ourselves, and not half for someone else.
The devout Oblingers face daily tests of their faith. With no mountains to stop the wind, the Great Plains are a breeding ground for massive thunderstorms.
The most objection I have to the weather here is the wind. There's a great deal of it during winter and spring, and being nothing to break it, one feels it more.
Don't go too far, honey.
The Oblingers live in Tornado Alley. More twisters hit this region than anywhere else on Earth. Over 400 touch down every year.
Tell the folks they've never seen a storm in Indiana. Only playthings.
200-mile-an-hour winds spin into a vortex, sucking in air and anything not bolted down. In 1930, a man is carried a mile across Kansas. Fish and toads rain from the sky. The Oblingers hunker down in their heavy sod house. clinging to their newfound independence.
I think that we're a nation of people descended from tough old coots and tough old broads. And I say that with great admiration. They just wanted to control their own future and to have children who could control their own destiny.
Tornadoes aren't the only biblical challenge the Oblingers face. By a river in the Rockies, the end of the world is brewing. A prehistoric species emerges to battle for the Great Plains. Locusts. After devouring the local vegetation, they release pheromones that signal it's time to move on. They grow long wings. Swarms head east on the wind. They join up over the Great Plains and become a plague. In 1874, they devour half of the crops in the West. 3 trillion locusts. Half a mile high, 100 miles wide, 1,000 miles long, as big as Colorado. They block out the sun. Agricultural Armageddon. To men like Uriah, the locusts are the wrath of God. By 1892, half the population of western Nebraska goes back east. Uriah stays.
You have to be brave in order to achieve in this country because nothing's set right there for you. You have to take chances. And I think bravery and fear are the same things. It's just a matter of how you react to that same feeling.
Those who stick it out get lucky. Within 30 years, the locust is extinct. Its breeding grounds in the Rockies plowed over by settlers like Uriah. In 10 years, the Great Plains become the breadbasket of the country. For the first time, America can feed itself. Today, 50 million tons of wheat is farmed each year. But trees are still scarce, and to build towns, settlers need wood. In Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, loggers harvest over 50 million acres of trees. Green gold, a magnet for Scandinavian woodsmen. Between 1825 and 1925, a third of Norway's entire population comes to America, including Nils Haugen.
The pay was $3 a day. You had to have a good pair of driving boots, well caulked, to be able to keep on top of the logs.
There's millions of dollars at stake. If the flow of logs stops, towns can't be built. Logjam, Riverman's ruin. In 1886, pine to build 20,000 homes gets stuck on the St. Croix River. 150 million feet of wood. Remove the right log, and the rest will explode downstream. Rivermen die, clearing obstructions like this. In 1892, 2 billion feet of lumber will be cut in Wisconsin alone. The railroad feeds lumber into the West's construction boom. Towns are built so fast, there's no time to name streets. They're given letters and numbers. The Great Plains is also home to the most numerous species of large wild mammal on Earth. 30 million buffalo. Herds up to 25 miles long race to summer breeding grounds on a collision course with the modern world. The railroad brings a new kind of hunter to the Great Plains, driven by profit, fresh from the carnage of the Civil War. Two million rifles are in circulation. Over 1 million veterans trained to use them have a new target in their sights. Frank Mayer, Civil War vet, buffalo hunter.
I had nothing to look forward to in civilization. I was crazy about guns.
Mayer tracks 2,000-pound buffalo, easily capable of crushing a man. He picks them off from 200 yards.
If you could kill them, what they brought was yours. They were walking gold pieces.
Hunters harvest the buffalo for its hide. In 1872, they shipped over 1 million out of Kansas alone, worth $3 a piece back east. On a good day, Mayer earns more than the president. Factories use long strips of buffalo leather as drive belts. Small pieces become coats and shoes. To meet demand, hunters kill 8,000 buffalo a day for their hides alone.
For Americans, this is progress because this is a natural resource. From the Indian perspective, they couldn't understand what the white people were doing. But of course, they knew that the decimation of those buffalo herds would change their lives forever.
The Plains Indians depend on the buffalo and worship them.
The buffalo were our strength, from whence we came and at whose breast we suck as babies all our lives.
Black elk is 6 years old when the railroad arrives. Unlike the white hunters, his people waste none of their kill. Sinews become bowstrings. Bones are cups and spoons. Skin is clothing, teepees, and coffins. Native Americans and buffalo have coexisted since the last ice age. Black elk's ancestors hunted them on foot. There were no horses to ride. The modern horse isn't native to North America. Spanish conquistadors brought them from Europe in 1493. Some escaped to the Great Plains, perfect horse habitat. 400 years later, over 1 million Mustangs run wild. Taming horses transforms the life of the Plains Indian. They become expert horsemen.
The battle cry went up, "Hookay!" which means to charge, and the hunters went in for the kill.
On horseback, the bow is the weapon of choice. In the time it takes to reload a gun, a warrior can ride 300 yards and fire 20 arrows. Buffalo can run at 35 miles an hour. Hunts cover hundreds of miles over many days. It can take 15 arrows to kill a buffalo. White hunters like Frank Mayer use a single cartridge. He aims for the lungs. A clean kill drops a buffalo without disturbing the herd. $30 million are killed in little over a decade. After hunters take the hides, trainloads of men arrive to pick their carcasses. They make buttons from bones, and grind down skeletons for fertilizer and porcelain. The primary resource keeping Native Americans alive is gone. Facing starvation, they're forced onto reservations.
My great-great-grandmother, Grandma Big Eagle, was alive when buffalo hunting ended. They weren't just saying goodbye to a kind of a foodstuff. They were saying goodbye to a way of being in the world. And I think for them to look back on that was just unspeakably sad.
In 1889, just 85 wild buffalo exist in the whole United States. The men who ride the great iron horse are taming the wilderness. The railroad will bring